The pregnancy test was positive 7 months ago. We celebrated, we planned, we picked out names. But when I secretly followed my wife to her doctor's appointment, I realized everything about our pregnancy was a lie. And the truth was more terrifying than any betrayal I could have imagined. My name is Thomas, and I'm 29 years old. What I'm about to tell you happened 3 weeks ago, but it feels like a lifetime. Because in one afternoon, everything I believed about my marriage, my wife, and our unborn child crumbled like a house of cards. It all started 7 months ago with the happiest moment of my life. Emma, my wife of 3 years, came running into our living room in Austin, Texas, holding a pregnancy test with tears streaming down her face. Thomas, Thomas, look, she screamed, waving the little plastic stick in the air. 2 pink lines. We were going to be parents. I picked her up and spun her around our small apartment, both of us laughing and crying at the same time. We'd been trying for 8 months, and there had been moments when we wondered if it would ever happen. But finally, we were pregnant. We need to call Dr. Patterson right away, Emma said, still beaming. I want to make sure everything's okay. Dr. Sarah Patterson had been Emma's gynecologist for years, a kind woman in her 50s who ran a small practice downtown. Emma trusted her completely, and so did I. Those first few months were magical. Emma glowed, literally glowed, with happiness. We converted our spare bedroom into a nursery, painting the walls a soft yellow since we wanted to be surprised about the gender. We bought a crib, a changing table, tiny clothes that seemed impossibly small. Emma was the perfect pregnant woman. She ate healthy foods, took her prenatal vitamins religiously, and never missed a doctor's appointment. Every 2 weeks, she'd come home from Dr. Patterson's office with new ultrasound photos and stories about how well the baby was developing. Dr. Patterson says the baby's heartbeat is perfect, she'd tell me, placing my hand on her growing belly. And look, you can see the little hands in this picture. I worked as a software engineer for a tech startup, and Emma was a freelance graphic designer. We weren't rich, but we were comfortable, and so excited about becoming parents. But around month 5, things started to feel different. It began with small things. Emma became secretive about her phone, always placing it face down when she wasn't using it. She started getting calls at odd hours, late at night, early in the morning, and would step outside to take them. "Who was that?" I'd ask when she came back inside. "Oh, just my mom," she'd say. Or, "Just a client." But something in her voice didn't sound right. Then there were the doctor's appointments. Emma had always been punctual about everything, but suddenly she was coming home from Dr. Patterson's office later and later. Traffic was terrible, she'd explain, or Dr. Patterson was running behind schedule. But when I offered to come with her to appointments, Emma always had an excuse. "You don't need to miss work for a routine checkup, honey." Dr. Patterson prefers to see pregnant women alone for these visits. It's just going to be boring anyway. I tried not to let it bother me. Pregnancy hormones could make women act differently, right? And Emma was still loving and affectionate with me. She still talked excitedly about the baby, still showed me ultrasound photos, still let me feel the baby kick, but the feeling that something was wrong kept growing. The breaking point came last Wednesday. Emma was getting ready for what she said was her weekly appointment with Dr. Patterson. She was 7 months pregnant now, her belly round and beautiful, wearing a flowy blue dress that made her look like an angel. "I'll probably be gone for about 2 hours," she said, kissing me goodbye. "You know how these appointments are." But I didn't know how these appointments were, because Emma had never let me come with her, not once in 7 months. After she left, I sat in our living room staring at the nursery door. Something was wrong. I could feel it in my bones. and I couldn't shake the feeling that Emma was lying to me about something important. So, I made a decision that would change everything. I got in my car and followed her. Emma drove her white Honda Civic downtown, and I stayed 3 cars behind her, my heart pounding with guilt and anxiety. I felt like I was violating her privacy, but I couldn't ignore my instincts anymore. I expected her to turn toward Dr. Patterson's office on Medical Center Drive. Instead, she drove right past that street and continued downtown. Where was she going? She finally pulled into the parking lot of a building I'd never seen before. It was a sleek, modern medical complex with tinted windows and expensive-looking landscaping. The sign out front read, Austin Advanced Fertility Center. Fertility Center? Why would Emma be at a fertility center when she was already 7 months pregnant? I parked across the street and watched as Emma got out of her car. She moved slowly, one hand supporting her lower back the way pregnant women do. But instead of looking tired or uncomfortable, she looked nervous, anxious. She walked into the building, and I sat in my car for 10 minutes, my mind racing with possibilities. Maybe she was seeing a specialist about some complication with the pregnancy. Maybe Dr. Patterson had referred her here for some reason. But why wouldn't she tell me if there was a problem with our baby? Finally, I couldn't stand it anymore. I got out of my car and walked into the fertility center. The lobby was all white marble and soft lighting, with the kind of expensive furniture you see in high-end hotels. Soft classical music played from hidden speakers. A receptionist with perfectly styled blonde hair smiled at me from behind a curved desk. "Can I help you?" she asked. "I am looking for my wife," I said, feeling foolish. "Emma Rodriguez. She's 7 months pregnant, about 5'6", brown hair." The receptionist's smile faltered slightly. "Are you here for a consultation, sir?" "A consultation for what?" Before she could answer, I heard Emma's laugh coming from somewhere deeper in the building. That distinctive, musical laugh that had made me fall in love with her 4 years ago. I followed the sound down a hallway lined with motivational posters about building families and miracle babies. The laughter was coming from an office at the end of the hall, where the door was slightly ajar. I crept closer and peered through the crack in the door. What I saw made my blood turn to ice. Emma was sitting in a chair across from a doctor, a man in his 40s with salt and pepper hair and a kind face. But Emma wasn't alone. Next to her sat another man, tall and blond, wearing an expensive-looking suit. And this man's hand was resting on Emma's pregnant belly. "The baby's developing beautifully," the doctor was saying, looking at what appeared to be an ultrasound image. "All the genetic markers look perfect. You're going to have a very healthy child." "Thank you, Dr. Morrison," the blond man said. "Sarah and I are so grateful for everything you've done." Sarah. The man had called Emma Sarah. Emma, or Sarah apparently, smiled and placed her hand over the blond man's. "We couldn't have done this without you, Doctor Morrison. The whole process has been amazing." "Well," Dr. Morrison said, "surrogate pregnancies can be emotionally complex, but you've handled everything beautifully. The intended parents are very lucky to have found someone as committed as you." Surrogate pregnancy. The words hit me like a physical blow. Emma wasn't carrying our baby. She was carrying someone else's baby. She was a surrogate mother. But that didn't make sense. We'd been trying to get pregnant for months. We'd celebrated when the test was positive. We'd planned and shopped and prepared for our child. Unless none of that was real. I stumbled backward from the door, my head spinning. I needed air. I needed to think. I needed to understand what the hell was happening. I made it back to my car somehow and sat there, shaking, watching the entrance to the fertility center. 45 minutes later, Emma emerged with the blonde man. They talked for a few minutes in the parking lot, and then he hugged her. A long, affectionate hug that made my stomach turn. After he drove away, Emma got in her car and headed home. I followed her again, my mind reeling with questions and horrible possibilities. When Emma walked into our apartment an hour later, I was sitting on the couch pretending to work on my laptop. "Hey, honey," she said, just like always. "How was your day?" "Fine," I managed to say. "How was the doctor's appointment?" "Oh, the usual. Dr. Patterson says the baby's doing great, growing right on schedule." She was lying, easily, naturally, like she'd been doing it for months. "Emma," I said carefully, "can I see the ultrasound pictures from today?" She froze for just a moment, so briefly I might have imagined it. "Oh, the machine was broken today," she said quickly. "Dr. Patterson said she'll get new pictures next week." Another lie. That night, I lay awake, staring at the ceiling while Emma slept peacefully beside me, one hand resting on her belly. I watched her breathe. This woman I'd been married to for 3 years, and realized I didn't know her at all. The next morning, after Emma left for what she said was a prenatal yoga class, I called Dr. Patterson's office. "Hi, this is Thomas Rodriguez," I said to the receptionist. "I wanted to schedule an appointment to come with my wife Emma to her next visit." "I'm sorry," the receptionist said, "but we don't have an Emma Rodriguez as a patient." My heart stopped. "Are you sure?" "She's been seeing Dr. Patterson for years. She's 7 months pregnant." "I'm sorry, sir, but I've checked our entire system. We have no patient by that name." I hung up the phone and stared at our apartment. Our apartment with the yellow nursery and the tiny clothes and the crib we'd assembled together. Everything was a lie. But why? Why would Emma fake a pregnancy? Why would she pretend to be carrying our child when she was actually a surrogate for someone else? And then, like a punch to the gut, I understood. The money. Emma had been spending money for months. New clothes, expensive prenatal vitamins, organic food, baby furniture. She said her graphic design business was doing well, but I handled our finances, and I knew we didn't have that kind of extra income. But if she was being paid as a surrogate mother... I grabbed Emma's laptop and opened it. Her email was logged in, and I felt another stab of guilt as I scrolled through her messages. But I had to know the truth. It didn't take long to find what I was looking for. Emails from something called Harmony Surrogacy Services, contracts and payment schedules and medical information. Emma, who had apparently been using the fake name Sarah Miller, was being paid $60,000 to carry a baby for a couple named David and Michelle Hartman. The blonde man from the fertility center was David Hartman. The emails revealed everything. Emma had been working as a surrogate for over a year, using a fake identity. She'd done this before, at least twice. The graphic design business that was supposedly doing so well was actually surrogacy payments. But the worst part, the part that made me physically sick, was the email dated 8 months ago. It was from Harmony Surrogacy Services, confirming that Sarah Miller was ready to begin her next surrogacy journey. 8 months ago. 1 month before Emma told me she was pregnant with our baby. This had all been planned. The fake pregnancy test, the excitement, the nursery preparation, all of it had been an elaborate lie to cover up the fact that she was carrying another couple's child. But why not just tell me? Why not explain that she wanted to be a surrogate mother to help other couples and earn money for our future? The answer came in another email, this one from Emma to someone at the surrogacy agency. "My husband doesn't know about my surrogacy work. He thinks this baby is ours. I need to make sure he never finds out, or it could ruin everything." I closed the laptop and sat in our living room, surrounded by baby furniture we'd never use and looking at ultrasound photos of a child that would never be ours. Emma came home from her yoga class around noon, glowing and happy. "How are my two favorite people?" she asked, kissing my forehead and rubbing her belly. "Emma," I said quietly, "we need to talk." She must have heard something in my voice because her smile faded. "What's wrong?" "I know." "Know what?" "I know about the surrogacy. I know about David and Michelle Hartman. I know about Sarah Miller. I know everything." The color drained from Emma's face. She sank into the chair across from me, her hands protectively covering her belly. "Thomas, I can explain." "Can you? Can you explain why you've been lying to me for 8 months? Can you explain why you let me believe this baby was ours?" Tears started streaming down her face. "I wanted to tell you. I tried to tell you so many times. But you didn't. I was scared. I was scared you'd be angry that I was doing surrogacy work without discussing it with you first. So instead, you decided to fake an entire pregnancy." "It wasn't supposed to happen like this," Emma sobbed. "I had signed up to be a surrogate before we started trying for our own baby. When the agency called and said they had a match for me, we'd been trying to get pregnant for months with no luck. I thought I could do this surrogacy, earn some money for our future, and then we'd try for our own baby afterward. But then why not tell me that? Because you would have wanted me to wait. You would have said we should keep trying for our own baby first. And Thomas, we needed the money. You don't know how stressed I've been about our finances." I stared at her. "So, you decided to lie instead." "I was going to tell you after the baby was born. I was going to say there were complications and we lost the baby, and then we'd try again for real." "You were going to fake a miscarriage?" Emma couldn't meet my eyes. "I know how it sounds, but I thought it would be easier than explaining everything." "Easier?" I stood up, pacing around our living room. "Emma, I've been emotionally preparing to be a father for 7 months. I've been talking to your belly every night. I've been planning my entire future around a baby that was never going to be ours. I know, and I'm sorry." "And what about the Hartmans?" "They think they're working with a single woman named Sarah Miller. Do they know you're married?" Emma shook her head. "The agency prefers unmarried surrogates. It's less complicated." "So you lied to them too." "Thomas, please try to understand. I've made $180,000 doing surrogacy work over the past 2 years. That money has been paying for our apartment, our car payments, our groceries. Without it, we would have been struggling." I stopped pacing. $180,000? You've done this before? Twice. Before we were married, and once during our first year of marriage. During our first year of marriage? When? Remember when I said I was doing that big freelance project for 6 months and was working from home? I was actually recovering from a surrogacy birth. My legs felt weak. I sat back down on the couch. So our entire relationship has been built on lies. No, Thomas, I love you. That's never been a lie. Everything else between us is real. How can I believe that? How can I believe anything you say now? Emma moved to the couch and tried to take my hands, but I pulled away. "Thomas, look at me. Yes, I lied about the surrogacy work. But I lied because I was trying to protect our future. I was trying to give us financial security so we could have our own children without worrying about money. By carrying other people's children instead, just until we were in a better place financially." I looked at Emma, really looked at her, 7 months pregnant with another couple's baby, sitting in our apartment surrounded by nursery furniture for a child we'd never bring home. "What happens now?" I asked. "Now I finish this pregnancy. I deliver a healthy baby to David and Michelle in 2 months, and then," she took a shaky breath, "and then we start over, for real this time." Start over? We try for our own baby. With the money I've earned, we can afford a bigger place. We can prepare properly. We can do this, right? I stood up again and walked to the window, looking out at the street where normal couples lived, normal lives with normal problems. Emma, I can't do this. Can't do what? I can't pretend for 2 more months that this baby is ours. I can't sit here every night feeling a kick and knowing it's going to belong to someone else. I can't live with this lie anymore. Then I'll tell the Hartmans the truth. I'll explain that I'm married and that my husband knows about the arrangement now. That's not the point. The point is that you've been lying to me for our entire relationship. How do I know you won't lie to me again? Emma started crying harder. Because I'll never do anything like this again, I promise. Your promises don't mean much to me right now. I walked to our bedroom and started packing a bag. Emma followed me, pleading. Thomas, please don't leave. We can work through this. I'll do anything to make this right. I need time to think. I need space to figure out what this means for us. Where will you go? My brother's place, just for a few weeks while I process this. And then? I stopped packing and looked at her. I don't know, Emma. I honestly don't know. That was 3 weeks ago. I've been staying with my brother Jake, trying to figure out what to do next. Emma calls and texts every day, begging me to come home, promising that everything will be different. Yesterday, she sent me a photo. It was an ultrasound image of the baby, the Hartman's baby, with a note that said, "This little one will be born soon, and then we can start our real family. Please come home." I stared at that ultrasound for a long time. Such a tiny, perfect little person who has no idea about the chaos surrounding their existence. Emma was right about one thing. In 2 months, this pregnancy will be over. The baby will go to its intended parents, and Emma and I will have to decide what comes next. Can I forgive her for lying to me for so long? Can I trust her to be honest in the future? Can we build a real marriage on the ruins of this deception? I don't know, but I do know one thing. If we're going to try to make this work, it has to be with complete honesty from now on. No more lies, no more secrets, no more fake pregnancies or hidden surrogacy arrangements. Because the truth, no matter how painful, is always better than living a lie, even when that truth is more terrifying than any betrayal you could have imagined. Tomorrow, Emma goes in for what will probably be her last appointment before delivery. This time, she's asked me to come with her, not to Dr. Patterson, who never existed in our story, but to Dr. Morrison at the Fertility Center. She wants to introduce me to David and Michelle Hartman as her husband. She wants to come clean about everything. I haven't decided yet if I'll go. But maybe it's time for all of us to face the truth, no matter how complicated it might be. Because sometimes the only way to move forward is to stop running from who you really are.